The drums are calling the people to vote in Trogen, as they have for centuries. The Swiss have a way of treasuring the past, and with these time-honored ceremonies in the Appenzeller mountains, they arrive on foot to decide on the issues that will face them in the next year. It is direct democracy. And they join in the Appenzeller anthem, recalling their rich history. Riding high on the great Zurich Ferris wheel, journalist Esther Giersberger looks to the future, beyond the old Swiss cliches.
We can't talk about Swiss cliches anymore because they don't exist anymore. We are in a big change, and the cliche of neutrality, cliche of watch industry, they are also involved into the change.
The cultural minister of the city of Lausanne, Marie-Claude Jacquier, takes a more ironic view of the progress of Switzerland.
There is a saying that says that the Swiss get along very well because they don't understand each other, which is sometimes true.
They understand each other well enough, though, to have created an unusual and effective nation, built around 3 German forest districts that broke away from Austria some 700 years ago. Switzerland is also bounded by Germany, France, Italy, and Liechtenstein. In April, the citizens come to the Trogen Square to vote, deciding the issues with a simple show of hands. In the year 1990, women voted here for the very first time. One of those pleased with this break with the medieval past was a lab technician, Elizabeth Pletcher.
I was brought up in Trogen, so every second year I could watch the cantonal elections from a distance. It was clear to me that all that was set up by men for themselves, in order that they could be the only ones to take part in decision-making. In a real democracy, however, women are entitled to the same rights as men are. Let's face it, men in every country would like to rule the roost. I believe men are somewhat afraid of women. The reason is that having a good few bright and hard-working women to face, men feel compelled to apply themselves a bit more.
Das will ich wahr und stets halten.
Before leaving, the men and women take a solemn oath to uphold the laws they have just passed. Appenzeller is one of the most conservative of the 26 cantons of Switzerland. These are citizens who think very carefully before they agree to any proposed changes.
I think Switzerland is conservative. We are more bounded or more close to conservative attitudes than other countries. We are very much used to make our own decisions. Everybody can decide by himself what to do and not what to do. He has to vote about everything. Some people say about too many things, but it takes him a lot of time to make his decision and to change his mind.
After the voting comes the eating, another solid Swiss tradition, and then the long walk home. The dairy farmers can never be long away from the farm. Twice a day, the brown Swiss cows must be milked. It's one of the fundamental rhythms of Swiss rural life, stretching far back in time. From the milk comes the famous Appenzeller cheese. Today it is rare to see it made in the old-fashioned way, but cheesemaker Bruno Neff claims that that's the only way to do it. In the old museum at Stein, he demonstrates his precise art. Not until the stove reaches exactly 96 degrees Fahrenheit can the work begin. It has taken centuries to perfect the process. Mr. Neff is a conservative cheesemaker, but on the subject of votes for women, he is quite liberal.
Ich bin eigentlich für das Frauenstimmrecht.
I'm in favor of a woman's right to vote. My wife is German, so she has enjoyed voting rights for some time. She was rather surprised, though, when she encountered the local custom after moving here to Appenzeller. And we'd be very sorry if all the excitement of the elections should ever disappear.
Sie würde es schade finden, wenn dieser Brauch zunichte gehen würde. Ja, ich gebe 75 Liter
After
Milch
pouring
ins Gefäß.
75 liters of milk into the tub, I stir in various bacterial additives, along with 12 milliliters of an enzyme called chymosin. Then, small pieces of cheese, no bigger than grains of corn, start to clot, and they give off a liquid called whey.
Kleiner als Maiskorngröße haben am Schluss. Und während diesem Vorgang scheidet der
Next, I knead and pummel for half an hour to warm up the mass of the cheese, this time to 43 degrees centigrade.
Tue ich da vorkäsen, Bruch machen. Dann gehe ich wieder aufs Feuer und tue langsam nachwärmen auf 43 Grad. Und wenn das geschehen ist,
Finally, with a special technique, I lift the mass of cheese out of the tub with a piece of cloth and cut it into 4 equal pieces, which go into the chessels.
Und dann mit dem Messer in 4 gleich große Stücke schneiden und in die Form geben.
In sharp contrast, a modern cheese factory stands right next door to the Stein Museum. Today, the demand is much greater than the traditional cheese-making methods can supply. So here, using large saltwater baths and the liquid extracts of medicinal plants, cheese-making takes on an industrial rather than a personal tone. But no matter how it is made, everyone tries to achieve the famous Appenzeller taste. It is, of course, but one of a broad spectrum of Swiss cheeses, from the Gruyere to the Emmentaler. Each region seems to have its own cheese as well as its own dialect.
When we come to the German part of Switzerland, we do not recognize the language that we learned at school because we learned German, and people speak dialects more and more. And when you are in a place where you do not understand the world, you do feel a foreigner.
The famous Alphorn, however, speaks a more universal language. Rudi Brichler wears the traditional farmer's shirt from Canton Uri. In Uri, the dialect is called Schweizerdeutsch. Crossing mountains and valleys and dialects, Rudi Brichler has come to visit his friends here in Canton Graubünden, the easternmost and largest canton. The talk ranges widely this afternoon, from the Romansch language to the Alphorn to pig breeding.
Romansch is of Latin origin. It was brought here by the Romans, who came up into these mountains, calling the place Helvetia. They got as far as Lake Constance, and they would return along the same route. Their legacy here was Romansch, which is close to Latin, and is our ancient heritage. Today's language borders came into being much later, appearing between the German-speaking and the Italian-speaking Swiss regions. It was the mountains that set the pattern and created the borders for the development of languages. And here live 50,000 Romansch people.
Zwischen Italien und Deutschsprechen sind eben die 50.000 Bergler.
Das Alphorn, das trifft man eigentlich wenig an im
The Alphorn is a relative newcomer to Rito-Romanic territories. This herdsman's instrument used to be played mainly in the central mountains of Switzerland. Its use was most widespread in the Celtic mountains. Similar instruments can be seen in Africa and among primitive peoples elsewhere.
It is said to have originated in the Carpathians. Others think it comes from Bavaria or Tibet. Here in Switzerland, it appeared around the 15th century. There is nothing known about its history before that. Accordingly, it is a Swiss instrument, but not as Swiss as it is believed to be. Interestingly, this modern instrument may not have been made here in Switzerland.
The breeding of cattle is state subsidized, of course, but not pig breeding. So cow's milk and beef are cheaper, but pork prices are regulated by the market. Actually, there is too much milk in Switzerland, and as a result, the Confederation has set up a milk quota system for the country as a whole.
The animal husbandry in their subsidized barns is legendary. But the conservative farmers worry that changes may disrupt their time-honored patterns of life. The Alps. They are the spine of Europe and the visual trademark of Switzerland. The farmers and country people play an important role in these high, frozen places. The state gives subsidies to local people for their work in controlling erosion and protecting the environment. And it is methodically worked out. The steeper the slope, the higher the subsidy. Up here, too, is another famous Swiss image, a tiny figure swooping down across a white landscape, and then riding slowly back up for yet another fast run. Every winter, the nation simply becomes a ski resort. Graubünden is one of the most popular areas. Two of its towns, Davos and St. Moritz, have become legends. The story is that all this wintry commotion started years ago when a hotel keeper decided not to close the hotel at the end of summer, but to invite his guests to stay on into the winter. He promised them a refund if they didn't have a good time. The refund turned out to be unnecessary. Today, an astounding 15 million visitors flock to Switzerland each winter for the skiing. The shining jewel of the Engadine is the handsome historic city of St. Moritz. It is a cosmopolitan little metropolis, a spa, and a heaven for the skier and bobsledder. Here in St. Moritz, or in Davos or the other nearby towns, as you sit comfortably in the sun, you can glance up and see the great surrounding mountains. This part of Switzerland has been called the roof of Europe. It is the month of March in Zurich, and now the largest Swiss city awakens from winter's sleep, and festivals spill out happily across the city. In April, the ancient guilds, organizations of workers and tradesmen, hold their festival. It is the festival of Sechscläuten, a joyous time with the joy running on for 2 days. The Tailors Guild is one of the oldest, and Christopher Schwegler is a member by inheritance. The old story of the guild is part of the family's memory.
The people of Zurich tend to surround themselves with a kind of wall, keeping a certain distance from one another. Everybody goes his own way, turning inward. So it's hard to make friends in the city, especially in winter when you see hardly anyone on the street. In spring and summer, it's quite a different story, as then the people seem to open up. After the spring equinox, life used to be different for the guildsmen. And so the custom started, with the guildsmen meeting at the Guild Inn at 6 a.m. on the first day of summertime. And this has become more and more elaborate, with one guild bringing horses and other providing music. Over the years, the festival has grown larger and larger.
Today, about 500,000 citizens gather to congratulate the guilds, which began with a small revolution in the city some 500 years ago. Christopher Schwegler is eligible to join the guild and will do so at the age of 28. He has always marched and danced with them. It is called the Berg, the winter puppet. And the burning of the Berg is the climax of the celebration. If it burns in less than 10 minutes, this is a good sign that a pleasant summer lies ahead. This year, the berg is entirely consumed in only 8 minutes. Things are looking up. The summer promises to be light and joyful. A rich tradition in Swiss life, the gathering of friends and family to make music.
I grew up in Zurich, not in this house, although it's my father's house. He grew up in this apartment actually, so it's nice to continue the family tradition. I was suffering a little bit from my parents being quite well known here in Zurich as lawyers, so I decided, why don't I choose another profession without leaving law completely.
Joining the staff of a famous conservative daily paper, she was not surprised to find that her colleagues were traditional in their thinking.
We have more or less a quarter of the editors being women, and some of the men of the male editors didn't really get used to be surrounded with women editors.
That ancient male attitude probably led in the year 874 to the building of the Fraumünster, the women's church. It was a convent for noble ladies who eventually acquired many rights over the town. Today, the transept is embellished with the works of Chagall and Giacometti. The Grossmünster, the cathedral, facing out across the Limmat River toward the women's church, it is said to have been founded by Charlemagne. Many of the powerful ideas of the Reformation were promulgated here by Ulrich Zwingli, and a part of that Protestant ethic was a reverence for work and profit and, of course, money.
Zurich means money, big money. It's just there. And I guess that a country, in order to exist, has to have money. And we know that Zurich is actually leading Switzerland because of its economic power.
The bankers, sometimes called the gnomes of Zurich, have made this city into the economic capital of the Swiss Confederation. Swiss banks have been known across the world for their ironclad secrecy. But once again, change is in the air.
The bank secrecy has changed a little bit. It's still existing, but it has been changed a little bit because we had all these scandals about money laundering. So we changed our law, which means that banks have to give some information.
The rules may have changed, but Zurich's gold glitters as brightly as ever.
Was hat die Bank leihbaren Wert heute?
Ich weiß es nicht einmal.
Every night in Zurich, something wonderful happens. The fiscal formalities fade away in favor of fun. The sounds of music pour out through the city. Everything from rock to reggae to local jazz to international festivals. Within a 24-hour period, the citizens can live two quite different lifestyles. Their intense daily work has been in the style of Northern Europe. Their nighttime fun is much more Mediterranean in tone. In a place called the Apfelkammer is a portrait of Gottfried Keller, once a regular here. He is remembered for his books, his poetry, his laughter, and his imbibing. As it turns out, the imbibing of wine is still part of the fun. But for young men with strong arms, there's another kind of fun. It's called showing off. Actually, there are two difficult tests involved here. The first is to haul yourself up through the narrow space near the ceiling. For that achievement, you get a glass of wine on the house. The second test is to drink the wine while upside down. If you pass both tests, you get to carve your name on the wall. All of which shows that the Swiss can be spontaneous and perhaps even silly, as well as serious. Zurich is at the heart of the German part of Switzerland, so you are likely to hear almost anywhere that musical trademark, the lilting Austro-Tyrolean German band. This amiable rhythm has echoed for years in places like the Bierhall Wolf, where citizens and students measure the beer by the meter rather than the liter. Nestled among the soaring mountains of this land are the famous Swiss lakes. What could be more romantic than to build your city on a lake? But in fact, the handsome city of Lucerne was situated on the bank of the Reuss River for military and economic reasons. The famous covered bridge, today a tourist attraction, was once a line of defense, like a fort. For when Zurich turned Protestant, Lucerne remained the center of Catholicism, and soldiers from Zurich would come to attack the city. Since the 13th century, Lucerne has been a pivotal place on trade routes between north and south. Great riches have come to the city over the years, as exemplified by the family of Thomas Gubelin, a wealth based on precious gems.
I think there is quite a bit of aristocracy in Switzerland. They're still with their families and building up some of their interesting companies. I think social differences are much smaller than in other countries. We are identifying colored stones, so it means sapphires, rubies, emeralds, and tourmalines and topazes, chrysoberyl, cat's eyes, etc. On the other hand, we do qualification in diamonds to see if a diamond has a good proportion, has a good light, its hardness, how it's its brilliancy. If a diamond is clean, that means if it has no identification marks inside, inclusions or anything like that.
The Gubelin Company was founded in 1854. It is August the 1st. It is a great day of Swiss celebration, the great emotional national holiday. It celebrates the dawn of a freedom that is cherished in every heart. They celebrate the great story and reenact it too. It was on August 1st in the year 1291 that the people of Lucerne took up arms against the forces of Austria. 3 cantons, Schweiz, Uri, and Unterwalden, declared themselves free. And what better day to recall again the imposing national mythic figure, William Tell, a man who many call the first European.
Guillaume Tell is, of course, to me it's 2 things. It's, of course, the myth of the national hero, and we have all studied that in school, but you have to remember that he was a sort of myth for not only the Swiss, but I'm a specialist of the period of the French Revolution. And in the time of the French Revolution, he was declared by the convention, the French government at that time, as a national hero in France, because he was a sort of symbol of the fight against tyranny.
William Tell's fearlessness and his strength are echoed these days in a huge sand pit near the Brunig Pass. It is the Swiss version of wrestling. In this country of farmers, as in many lands, there is a rural respect for sheer strength. It is an important part of a rough outdoor life. Adrian Kaiser is one of the best.
I started wrestling at the age of 10. It was my father who first took me to a tournament. I went to a wrestling school and did quite well. Of course, I had to train a lot, and I also started to compete. Nowadays, I wrestle twice a week, and I work out twice a week, and you need both coordination and conditioning. So far, we've had only Swiss competitors here, but I hear that an American is coming to join us. I hope that he'll be able to stand his ground.
Swiss men used to be the head of the family, which was even written in our law book, and we changed it only a few years ago. I wish it would change a little bit faster, but it will also take some time till the mentality changes completely.
The Swiss are finding that it is easier to change a law than it is to change people's minds. When the Swiss create something, whether it be a song or a building or a loaf of bread or a piece of lace, it is done with precision and care. In the unique open-air museum at Ballenberg, the various styles of traditional Swiss rural architecture have been brought together. Interiors have been recreated as in the past, and craftsmanship too is on display. Ballenberg is a quietly compelling place. In Ticino canton, in the Italian part of Switzerland, are the famous castles of Bellinzona.
The Italian part of Switzerland is more than the French part of Switzerland a real minority. And unfortunately, the people from the Italian part of Switzerland are having complexes because of this minority. And it's a shame because I think there is no reason for them. They enrich Switzerland very much by the Italianità, as we call it. The Italian part of Switzerland is quite well known for its architecture and for the architects coming from the Italian part of Switzerland.
The queen city of Ticino is Lugano. Like many cities and towns in this lovely canton, Lugano blends the efficiency of Switzerland with the more relaxed tone of Italy. The Catholic Swiss guards at the Vatican have traditionally come from Ticino. And the architecture is a reflection of Italy too. A handsome contemporary note is struck by the architecture of Mario Botta, one of Lugano's most famous sons.
Architecture has to present the basic human values, the most simple ones.
Mario Botta, a student of Le Corbusier, has built many structures abroad, but has resisted invitations to leave Ticino. he wants to reshape his own town and the region with his work.
La casa deve ritornare ad essere la caverna dell'uomo.
The house must become man's cave again and show that it can protect us. Humans, that is to say, are in need of walls protecting them. As for public buildings, they must be representative of appropriate symbolic values, metaphoric ones, ones which account for their coming into existence.
Nascosti dietro le istituzioni. La Chiesa deve essere riconoscibile
Churches
come
must be recognized as being shrines for souls. City halls must be seen as centers of communal activity. Theaters must be perceived as homes for collective reflection. Markets must convey the ideas of commerce being done there, and so on.
Riconoscibile come luogo dell'immaginario collettivo. Il mercato deve essere riconoscibile come luogo del commercio, dello scambio e così via.
The architect treasures the idea that nearby Lake Lugano is the international border between Switzerland and Italy.
Io trovo che questa condizione
I believe that our borderline situation, the fact that we are in the position of acting as intermediaries between two cultures on either side, has a beneficial effect on us. This borderline situation is a kind of privilege, which enables us to appreciate both of our neighboring cultures.
And on a warm summer night in the town square of Lugano, citizens and visitors fall under the spell of a more distant culture, dancing to the music of a vintage American popular song. There are two ways to cross the Alps. You can go over them on one of the many steep switchback roads, or you can go through one of the 10 auto and rail tunnels that the industrious Swiss have punched through the mountains. The Grimsel Pass, connecting the Bernese Oberland with the valley of the Rhone, is one of the most ancient alpine passes. And far below the surface, the transalpine tunnels provide not only transportation, but an unexpected beauty. The crystals created over 15 million years remain on display. Another hidden treasure in the Swiss Alps is a vast array of hydroelectric plants. The engineer is Roland Kunzler.
Die elektrische Energie
In Switzerland, hydroelectric power is an important factor in the economy. 57% of Swiss power is produced in hydro stations. Nuclear power accounts for 41%, and 2% is thermal power.
Mr. Kunzler's profession is electricity, but he is also interested in the history of this place.
The Grimsel Pass
is one of the ancient passageways between the north and south of Europe. The Celts, who were the original inhabitants of Switzerland, were the ones who found this pass. And in countless battles, the French and the Austrians fought here. Later, Napoleon crossed the pass, and it was he who had the first primitive road constructed, so that carts could cross the mountains.
so ausgebaut hat, dass man zuerst mit Kutschen, also mit Pferdewagen, über diesen Pass gehen konnte.
Travelers climb aboard a cog railway at Kleine Scheidegg for one of the most remarkable train rides in the world. Swiss railroad engineering has always required imagination, and nowhere is that seen better than on this line. It is the highest railway in Europe, and at one point en route to the summit of the Jungfrau, it enters an inclined switchback tunnel 4 miles long. There are intermediate stops inside the mountain. After walking and sliding through a frozen tunnel, the traveler comes upon the intricate carvings of an ice palace. Perhaps even more impressive is a stop at which one looks out through a window in the side of the mountain to Grindelwald, nearly 6,000 feet below, and to the Eiger Glacier. There are many chances on this trip to see the icy glory of the glaciers. Over 700 square miles of Switzerland are covered with these great rivers of ice. An invisible phenomenon here in the mountains is the föhn, a hot wind that blows up from Italy, creating a comfortable day in a high, snowy place. The gorgeous landscape is a source of awe for the visitor and a source of income for the Swiss.
Many people think that Switzerland is a very rich country, but they forget that until the 19th century, Switzerland was poor and had not enough work to feed its own inhabitants. And of course, tourism is one of the things that brought some wealth to areas of Switzerland which were especially poor in the mountain.
One of the most remarkable of these areas contains the world-famous Trimmelbach Falls. Here is the combined runoff from the snows of three great mountains, Jungfrau, Munk, and the Eiger, and the water has gouged out a cavernous gorge or schlucht. The roar is unbelievable. Down at the lower altitudes in Switzerland, the waters are more manageable, or somewhat more manageable anyway. And in the summer, there is a lot of traffic along the Aare River. The Aare is the river of Bern, the federal capital, and rafting trips can end right in the middle of town. This handsome city is the political center of the Confederation, but the deep-seated political loyalties of the Swiss remain focused back home in their cantons. The old part of Bern has a more medieval look than any other Swiss city.
Bern is the federal city. It is the place where the federal government is. It's where the orders come from sometimes. It also reminds us that we were conquered militarily by Bern, by the canton, and were living under Bernese power for 262 years to be exact, so over 2 centuries, almost 3 centuries. But culturally speaking, for example, Bern has absolutely no meaning to us.
In a house in the old section of the city lives a man who is better known for painting than pugilism.
Ich heiße Franz Fedier, ich bin Maler. Ich bin hier in Bern seit...
My name is Franz Fedier. I'm a painter. I've been living here in Bern since 1945 and working in this studio for 30 years now. I've always been a painter. That's what I learned in Bern, Switzerland, and also in Paris. But I got my themes for my paintings mainly from home. I taught painting at the Basel Academy of Arts for 20 years. I chaired the faculty, teaching young Swiss artists modern ways of expression. Students of mine are to be found in every nook and cranny of the world. The picture features shreds of titles and impressions of nature. It's all about rocks, stones, snow and vegetation. All this is not an impressionistic rendering, but a modern one, showing not the whole, only details of it.
The Fine Arts Museum in Basel, Switzerland's leading city in the arts. The paintings of Franz Fedier are on exhibition here, and he is one of the artistic leaders of the institution. His fellow Swiss, Alberto Giacometti, paved the way for him as he persuaded the Swiss to accept the idea of modernism.
The first city was Basel. That was the one on which North German painting had the most influence. We have painters in common, like Holbein, for example, just to mention the most important one. Holbein the Elder, but Konrad Witz or Cranach also belong here.
Some painters have been claimed simultaneously by the Germans and the Swiss, and Holbein is one of them. Born in the south of Germany, he lived for some time in Basel, then went on to London. Holbein's portrayal of Christ was so stark and dramatic that it shook sensibilities all across Europe.
Let us take a Swiss painter from among the famous ones. Konrad Witz, for example, lived and worked in Basel, but sometimes he turned up in Geneva as well. A historical painter of ours is Hodler. Landscapes, paintings of mountains belong to his best. He is the best painter for mountains. The most important painter of the late 19th century is Böcklin. Böcklin is from Basel, and he first went to Germany, then to Italy. He painted pictures of symbolic meanings, his symbolism drawing on antique mythology. At the same time, however, Böcklin also designed aeroplanes.
The people of Basel appreciate art and they support it. The Arts Museum was the first of its kind to be financed by a city. The cathedral, one of the oldest in the country, was built in the 12th century. The impulse of the Renaissance was strongly felt at Basel, where the teachings of Erasmus and others paved the way for the Reformation. The town hall is another massive structure out of the distant past. When the Swiss sculptor Tanguy was invited to create a fountain here, he playfully did a piece that was modern and funny too. It is appropriate that in this town of museums and concerts that there be a museum of musical instruments. Mark Hunninger is a specialist who knows these ancient instruments and plays them skillfully. Many shapes, many sizes, many sounds. Their designs stretching far back into the past. For a long time, Basel has been a city of composers, a city of friends making music and creating a romantic atmosphere. On Lake Geneva in the city of Lausanne, another aura of romanticism was created by the poet Byron, who placed the castle of Chillon into the memory of the world with his poem about a Protestant prisoner who was held here for years.
Switzerland is a very strange mixture. In some fields it is very conservative, in others it is very, very avant-gardiste and sometimes very surprising.
Marie-Claude Jacquier is the Chief of Cultural Affairs for the city.
In my field, which is culture or education, it is the cantons and the cities who decide. And this, of course, has to do with the fact that there is no Swiss culture, there is no Swiss language, there is no Swiss common education. because of the different areas. I was born here in Lausanne and studied here in Lausanne until the university. And even after I was finished with my studies, I worked in the university as an assistant. And since 1987, I am the head of the cultural, I'm responsible of the cultural affairs of the city of Lausanne. That is to say, the opera, the theaters, the orchestras, the museums, everything that is going on in the field of culture. We are here in front of the Cathedral of Lausanne, which, like all cathedrals in this country, of course, were built as Catholic churches. This one was even inaugurated in 1275 by the Pope himself and by the Emperor. At the beginning of the 16th century, Reformation was arrived to Switzerland. Calvin, of course, in Geneva, Zwingli in Zurich, and almost all of the big Swiss cities became Protestant. Geneva, Bern, Basel, Zurich. And this, of course, changed a lot of things about the mentality.
Arriving in Geneva, one does not find the inward-turning attitudes so characteristic of the isolated German-Swiss valleys. In this historic trading center, the hard-working citizens have learned to deal with people and ideas from many places.
Some of the seriousness of the Swiss, this idea that work, well-done work, is sacred and is blessed by God, is probably a very Protestant idea.
Religion has an important role in our society, and I think it comes also from the separation between the state and the church. The discussion goes on for years. Should we have a complete separation? Because some circles believe that the church influences the state politically too much.
Geneva is a serene city and a wealthy city, and a city that is concerned about the state of the world. The World Economic Forum is a private foundation, and Colette Mather serves as its director.
Well, Geneva is, of course, a Swiss city, and it would be a pity if it wasn't, because it's, of course, fully part of Switzerland. But at the same time, it has a very different characteristic from other Swiss cities, because its history, its whole history has been of openness, of international outlook, and we want to be global. And there are very few cities in the world which are as international as Geneva.
When people are as precise and accurate as the Swiss, it seems only natural that they would turn their attention to timekeeping and to the making of fine watches. In the Jura region, which contrasts so clearly with the Alps, live the people who are at the heart of Swiss timekeeping, the watchmakers. Watches with world-famous names flow from the little villages of this region: Patek Philippe, Blancpain, Audemars Piguet. Even in times of difficulty, with heavy competition from the quartz watch, Swiss watchmakers have held firmly to the traditional mechanical watch. Louis Baumgartner is one of them.
La précision de mon travail.
We have to work with measurements of less than a hair's breadth. In many families, watchmaking is a heritage passed on from father to son. The tricks of the trade with the finest watches can be best handed over within families. Therefore, as often as not, you will find father and son working on the same watch.
Ça existe encore que des enfants travaillent avec leurs parents.
The brilliant mechanical tradition of Swiss timekeeping is seen clearly in the museum at La Chaux-de-Fonds. Oddly enough, it was Martin Luther who provided the first impetus to the farmers of Switzerland, who became watchmakers as well as farmers. He urged them to use gold to make watches and clocks instead of making crosses, and they listened to him.
We are precise where we have to be precise, like in watchmaking, because it's a handcraft where you have to be very precise. We are punctual because it makes life easier.
One local citizen who has been a farmer here for many years is Raymond Bohm. And today he is also well known as a breeder of fine horses.
70 to 80 years ago, you could find watchmaking peasants all over the place. I mean, peasants at work in the stables in the morning, looking after the animals, and making watches throughout the rest of the day.
Mr. Bohm heads the local association of breeders, and horses are growing in popularity. It is claimed that the longest galloping field in the world is right here. And every year there is a grand festival of horses.
Patterned on the name of our region, the horses are called Franche-Montane types over here. They are heavy animals with distinctive features of their own, which are well known by experts. They are said to have a temper of gold. We are making this celebration because we love our horses, our region, and our country. We also wish our horses, together with this country, were known by more and more people.
Even when they are having fun, there is always the Swiss ideal to achieve, an ideal of precision and perfection.
Switzerland is small, and I think the people need to go out. Well, you know Rousseau, of course. I don't know if he's the most famous Swiss. You have Le Corbusier, but you have lots of other, Giacometti, you have artists, you have architects, you have even gold in California was found by a Swiss, Monsieur Sutter, and there are so many more.
Switzerland has become the European country with more local festivals than any other. It is at moments like this that the Swiss reputation for being reserved seems to fade away.
It takes a while till a Swiss person is opening up. They are very careful in the beginning. They observe, they think on their own or for themselves, how am I going to react? What am I going to say? They are really careful and waiting. And then once they have the trust, once they have the confidence, they can be very good friends. They are just reacting more than acting.
Today, the country is moving slowly toward opening up on a political and social level, a national level, as the Swiss move closer to other nations. Change is in the air, and much of a modern nature has been accomplished. The old clichés are indeed fading away. And yet, the Swiss cannot be rushed. There is an old saying heard here from time to time: the Swiss get up early, but they wake up late. Across the centuries, this kind of circumspection has served them well in their small and spotless and mountainous country at the heart of Europe. Welcome to Fodor's Travel Planner. The following travel tips will provide information to prepare you for your Swiss adventure. This video guide and the following information would not be possible without the assistance of sponsors who do not determine editorial content. Although the appearance of spokespeople does not imply the endorsement of Fodor's, the producers are pleased to share their reliable and timely information with you. For additional details, consult the Traveler's Handbook included with this video guide. The paradox of the Swiss. Their primary national aesthetic pitches rustic alpine homes against high-tech urban efficiency. Though they're proud, neat, prompt, self-contained, independent culturally and politically, disdainful of the shabby and the slipshod, the Swiss have a weakness for country charm. It is a lucky combination for tourists, this dichotomy of the cute and the functional. It means your trains get you to your firelit lodge on time. It means the shower in your room runs as hot as a Turkish bath. It means the cable car that sweeps you to a mountaintop has been subjected to grueling tests and inspections. Edith Straub, a Swiss travel industry executive, will be sharing some insights for visitors to her country.
Switzerland has for many, many years been a country that has had a lot of tourists. Switzerland is in the center of Europe, very centrally located, and it has a lot to offer to tourists. First of all, I think we have a fantastic scenery with lakes and woods and mountains. Secondly, we have a very good infrastructure which is functioning very well.
Swiss citizens celebrate their proud independence, their cultural wealth, and above all their diversity. It's that diversity and those quirky contradictions that make Switzerland a tourist capital, the folksy, fiercely efficient innkeeper to the world.
Now, of course, the Swiss sometimes give an impression of being cool, but sometimes it's just because maybe they are a little bit insecure towards foreign people. So it's not that they don't like them, it's just they first want to have a look, they want to look a little bit how those people are functioning, so in order to adapt a little bit.
It would be easy to oversimplify and say that Switzerland has 3 basic cuisines that reflect its 3 basic languages, French, German, and Italian. But Swiss eating habits are as much a result of terrain as they are of cultural influence. Mountains produced spare and simple fare to feed the poor farmers who cultivated them. Cheese, good bread, meat carefully dried to last the winter. Cities nurtured wealthy burghers and noblemen with the cream of the crops of the outlying lands. Milk-fed veal, beef from cows grazed on steep mountain meadows, fruits from lowland orchards, wines from small and coveted slopes along the Rhone and the Rhine rivers. Switzerland is essentially sportswear country, with most of its visitors coming to ski, hike, or relax in its alpine resorts. Yet the cities are more formal, and men would be wise to include a jacket if you want to try one of the great restaurants. As for women, if you would rather fit in with the natives instead of fellow tourists, a casual skirt is appropriate for daily wear. Bring a wool sweater. Even in July and August, the evening air grows chilly in the mountains, and consider a shady hat or sunscreen, as the atmosphere is considerably thinner at high altitudes. Good walking shoes are a must, whether you're tackling medieval cobblestones or mountain trails. The following is made possible by American Express Checks for Two, the only traveler's checks that either of you can use because both of you have signed them. And only one of you needs to be present to buy them. Don't leave home without them. The unit of currency in Switzerland is the Swiss franc.
In Switzerland, we use francs, Swiss francs, and Rappen. That's the centimes, or the cents. And 1 franc has 100 centimes. So we have pieces of 5 cents, 10 cents, 20, 50. Then we have 1 franc, 2 francs, 5 francs. This is pieces. And then we have paper that starts at 10 francs, 20 francs, 50 francs, 100 francs, and 500 francs.
Traveler's checks and major credit cards are accepted in most cities and resorts. In rural areas, you may need cash. You won't find as good an exchange rate at home as abroad, but it's wise to change a small amount of money into Swiss francs before you leave home. Several credit cards offer services which allow cardholders to withdraw funds from their personal checking accounts or on their credit cards at ATMs around the country. Switzerland is one of the most expensive countries in Europe for the traveler. If you are traveling on a tight budget, avoid staying in well-known resorts and in the most sophisticated cities. What you see is what you pay in Switzerland. Restaurant checks and hotel bills include all taxes, from federal to local tourist tariffs. Tips in Switzerland range from the change from the nearest franc to 10 Swiss francs for a world-class meal exquisitely served. Unlike American-style tipping, which is calculated by a percentage, usually between 10 and 20%, a tip here is still a tip, a nod of approval for a job well done. With taxi drivers and restaurants, it's customary to round up the bill to the nearest franc. Tipping porters and doormen is easier. 1 Swiss franc per bag is adequate in good hotels, 1 Swiss franc per trip in humbler lodgings, unless you're traveling with quite a number of bags. The following is made possible by Swiss Air. From the United Kingdom, flights to Switzerland take less than 2 hours. For U.S. travelers, it takes approximately 7 hours to fly from New York to the intercontinental airports at Geneva and Zurich. If you are lucky enough to be able to sleep on a plane, it makes sense to fly intercontinental at night. Many experienced travelers, however, prefer to take a morning flight to Switzerland and arrive in the evening, just in time for a good night's sleep. Charter flights offer the lowest fares, but often have many restrictions. Don't sign up for a charter flight unless you have checked with a travel agency or your state or local consumer protection office about the reputation of the packager. If you're flying into Zurich or Geneva and plan to spend some time in the city first, save money by arranging to pick up your car in the city on the day you depart. It's best to arrange your car rental before you leave home. You won't save money by waiting until you arrive in Switzerland, and you may find that the type of car you want is not available at the last minute.
We also do have a very good public transportation system in all of Switzerland. Within the cities we have the public transport system with tramways and buses.
There are many options for travel within the Swiss travel system, which includes most private railroads, lake steamers, postal motor coaches, and urban transit systems in 24 cities. If you live outside Europe or North Africa, the Eurail Pass is an excellent value for traveling around the continent. It is valid for unlimited first-class train travel through 17 countries, including Switzerland. You can apply through an authorized travel agent. The entire country of Switzerland is smaller than Ireland or the state of West Virginia, so flying from one region to another is a luxury that, considering the efficiency of the trains, few travelers require. Seat reservations are useful at rush hours and in high season, especially on international trains. There are plenty of price reductions available for visitors. Switzerland's famous yellow postal buses with their tritone horns carry passengers between main cities and villages off the beaten track and even crawl over the highest mountain passes. Both postal and city buses follow posted schedules to the minute. You can set your watch by them. Free timetables can be picked up in any post office from which the buses usually depart. Watch for the yellow sign with the picture of a hunting horn. Drifting across a Swiss lake in the shadow of the Alps, stopping to visit a castle or to browse in a small waterfront village are experiences a visitor should not miss. All of Switzerland's larger lakes are crisscrossed by elegant steamers, some of them restored paddle steamers. There is a well-developed highway network, though some notable gaps still exist in the south along an east-west line. Swiss roads are usually well surfaced, but wind about considerably, especially in the mountains. Don't plan on achieving high average speeds. A combination of steep or winding routes and hazardous weather conditions means that some roads will be closed in winter.
Switzerland has also, from a point of view of shopping, a lot to offer. Of course, Switzerland is famous for watches, for chocolate, jewelry. This is one very good thing, but also we have all the international famous brands of fashion, shoes, leather goods, and so forth and so on.
Some of the best souvenirs of this pragmatic country are typically practical: watches, clocks, and Swiss Army knives. Watches and clocks are made for the most part in western French-speaking Switzerland, especially in Neuchâtel and Jura. Their prices are factory standardized, however, and you will find them the same throughout Swiss cities. Linens and good cottons, dish and tea towels, aprons, sheets, are all usually very high quality if Swiss made, but read the labels closely. The same household linen shops often carry a selection of fine Swiss embroidery, nearly all of it machine-made. The Appenzeller and St. Gallen areas create most of this pretty needlework, including handkerchiefs. Chocolate is big business here, and most of it is sweet milk chocolate, though dark chocolate is available. Chocolate bars filled with liqueurs make good souvenirs and gifts. Handmade filled chocolates or pralines are highly prized as well, and small family shops vie for the most mouth-watering window displays. Pottery and ceramics are Swiss traditions, most of them dark glazed and hand-painted with native designs. There are also different styles of lace and hand-woven wool and flax, available both in rural areas and city gift shops. Tin, copper, and pewter wares in rustic styles are available, as well as the famous wood carvings of Briennes. The best central resource for handcrafts is the Heimatwerk chain, with branches in several Swiss cities. They display a carefully chosen selection of both new and old-style handwork. A value-added tax, or VAT, is included in the price of all goods. Non-residents may claim a VAT refund at the time of purchase, or the shop will send the refund to your home. Watches are miniature works of mechanical art. The price range today among Swiss watches is surprisingly broad, from the pop art swatches that swept the young market in the 1980s to the jeweled masterpieces of Blancpain. Ironically, foreigners looking for bargains on a local purchase may be disappointed. Most prices are strictly controlled by the companies that make the watches, with variation from store to store of rarely more than 1 or 2%. You can buy a fine watch in Switzerland, but only at the going rate. In Geneva, you are likely to hear a greeting of "Bonjour, comment allez-vous?" while the common greeting in Zurich might be "Grüezi." More than 70% of the population of Switzerland speaks one dialect or another of German. French is spoken in the southwest around Lake Geneva. Italian is spoken in the Ticino. In the upper and lower Engadine, the Romance language called Romanche is still in standard use. In the areas frequented by English and American tourists, Swiss in the tourist industry accommodate them by speaking English.
Switzerland has always been a country that has been dependent on foreign trade, on foreign countries, foreign people, and that's why, and also Swiss were for a long time, they have been abroad a lot. And English has become a world language, especially in the trade, in the business sector.
Before you plunge into English with a stranger, many Swiss prefer that you first ask if they speak English. They almost always do, but if they don't, this courtesy gives them the chance to rush for the aid of a friend or associate. Stamps can be purchased at post offices, postcard kiosks, and stamp machines. The mailboxes are yellow. Postal Express mail is remarkably efficient. Letters sent before noon will arrive the same day in the same city and the following day in most of Switzerland. Overseas and pickup services available include DHL, Federal Express, or TNT. There is direct dialing to everywhere in Switzerland. For local and international codes, consult the pink pages at the front of the telephone book. To make a local call on the payphone, pick up the receiver, put in the minimum, and dial the number. A useful alternative is the PTT phone card. The cost of the call will be counted against the card, with any remaining value still good for the next time you use it. You can dial most international numbers direct from Switzerland, adding 00 before the country code. It is cheapest to use the booths in train stations and post offices. Calls made from your hotel cost a great deal more. Long-distance services, allow travelers to connect directly with an operator in the United States who completes the call. Switzerland is at its best in the peak summer tourist season of July and August, when days are long and sunny with relatively warm evenings. Naturally, crowds are heavier, especially on alpine excursions, where you may have to wait in line or stand on a crowded cogwheel train or take your turn admiring the view from the top. The months of June and September benefit from the good weather, and hotel prices can be slightly lower, especially in resorts. In springtime, April and May, the mountains are at their loveliest, with the peaks still capped with snow. However, as the ski season is over, this is often considered low season, and many resort hotels close down. Those that remain open reduce their prices considerably. If you're planning to take a ski vacation over the winter holidays or around Easter, book well in advance. Switzerland is Europe's winter playground, and its facilities are as technically advanced as its slopes are spectacular. Any level of skier can find a resort to meet his or her needs. Familiarize yourself with the resort's trail markers, including those warning of avalanche zones, before you set out. The convenient Swiss Rent-A-Ski program, a franchised service available in 47 resorts, allows you to rent skis, poles, and boots on a weekly basis. The Swiss Ski School is a renowned, reliable, federally controlled source of on-site instruction, whether you are a beginner or an advanced student. The instructors are all multilingual, with a majority speaking English. Outdoor activities in Switzerland are not limited to the ski slopes. Each of the regional tourist departments publishes suggested hiking itineraries, and major map publishers distribute excellent topographical maps of the many miles of wilderness trails. In the German-speaking world, including Swiss German, hiking is a serious tradition, and people of all ages and in all conditions head for well-beaten paths in knickers, woolen stockings, and heavy boots. But there is also an almost infinite quantity of quiet, isolated paths to be explored. And if you prefer to hike in peace, head for one of the less inhabited alpine valleys and simply strike out on your own. Switzerland has one national park, called the Swiss National Park, which is reserved for day hikers only. It's located in the easternmost part of Switzerland, the Upper Engadine, in the canton Graubünden. Adventure vacations also move to the water for activities such as rafting, sailing, or windsurfing, with numerous groups offering schools and expeditions. Of all the Swiss cities, Zurich has the liveliest nightlife, with bars, clubs, discos, and jazz. If you are passing quickly through Switzerland and want the regional experience in a nutshell, head for one of the several restaurants which offer evenings of yodeling, dancing, Alphorn, and fondue. The following is made possible by Best Western International.
In Switzerland, there is all kinds of hotels. We have 5-star hotels, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have small family pensions. We have camping sites. We have youth hostels. And I must say that in Switzerland has a reputation of being a clean country. And I think if you look around a little bit, it still is a clean country. And even if you go to a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star hotel, in most of the cases they are very clean.
Before you leave home, pick up the Swiss Hotel Guide. It is free, and it lists all the members of the Swiss Hotel Association. Most hotels today have private bath and shower. Those that don't are usually considerably cheaper. Service charges and taxes are included in the price quoted and the bill you pay. Breakfast is included unless there is a clear notice to the contrary. Remember that the no-nonsense Swiss sleep in separate beds, or at best, a double with separate bedding. If you prefer more sociable arrangements, ask for the matrimonial bed or the French bed. All major towns and train stations have services that will help you locate a hotel. They sometimes charge a small fee, and local tourist offices will also help. Switzerland is as famous for its hotels as it is for its mountains, knives, and chocolates, and its standards in hospitality are extremely high. Luxury hotels such as the Palace in Lucerne and the Dolder in Zurich are world-renowned for their incredible quality and service. Prices tend to be higher than they are anywhere else in Europe, but you can be sure that you will get what you pay for. Mountain ski resorts invest a fortune in preserving alpine coziness inside and out. Winter, of course, is the most expensive time, but summer is close behind, so be prepared to pay premium prices. Check the quoted room rates to see if they include demi-pension, that is 2 meals per day. You'll find that true in most resorts. Switzerland has literally thousands of furnished chalets. Off-season per-day prices are quite reasonable, although peak season prices may double, and the deluxe chalets cost much more. Country inns offer clean, comfortable, and hospitable accommodations, often in areas of great scenic beauty. Many are in the inexpensive category and are an excellent value. A booklet, Guest Houses in the Mountains, is available through the Swiss National Tourist Organization. So whenever you come to Switzerland, winter, summer, spring, or fall, you'll be well taken care of, you'll have a rich experience, and you'll never forget this remarkable country.